Yeah, I'm about to expose some lies. Let's get it. A lot of people want to speak with no facts, nowhere to stand on. All I see is preaching lies, building on the sand. This right here, leading generation to the wasteland. But I'm here delivering the truth to your door like a mailman. Standing on the truth and saying it's lame, but Jesus got me going better than Superman. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. This is part 2 of Allah is the Moon God. And in this video I'm going to address again that Allah is not a word mean God, but it's the name of the God of the Muslims. And so firstly I want to address a comment from our brother Sam Shamoun, where he pointed out that Allah is not the same as which I glanced over, and this is the great thing about learning, is that when you make a mistake you correct and you learn and you move forward without holding on to pride. And so as I mentioned, I would make the correction, and yes, that is in fact true. And the main point that I want to get at is that in different culture or different religion you would have a different name for the moon deity, and in this case it's Allah. And if you take a look in Hinduism and you put the moon god in Hinduism, you will see that we have the name here, as you can see, Chandra, which is the moon god in Hinduism. And if you look in other culture, you would find the same thing, as you have the moon god and the sun god worship. And so they would say that they don't worship the moon, but worshiping the sun or the moon god is not worshiping the moon or the sun, but is worshiping the god of that moon. As you see, this is the god of the moon. And in the case of the pagans, the Arabs, they worship Allah, which I'm going to get at from the Quran here. From my previous video I shown that the word that is used for the name is Alhamdulillah, which is Allah is the name because Li mean to La. So praise be to La, which is the name of the God, which is La. And right again from the Quran we will see that here that it's indeed the name of the God of the Muslim. As you can see here, the Arabic, which is La ilaha illa Allah. So we see that we have the word here which is ilaha and Allah. So ilaha means God in Arabic, and Allah is the name of the God, which we're going to look at their translation here. There is no God except who? Except Allah. No, you can't say there is no God but God, which it doesn't make sense. As you see here, they try to use it as many would say that is like the common G like we use for English, but that's not the case. So there is no God but the God does not make sense still. If you want to say something that makes sense, it would be more like in this case, there is no boy except John, because we know that John is a boy, but the only boy in the class is John. So the only God is Allah, which makes perfect sense. But if you say there is no boy but boy, it does not make sense. If you say there is no boy but the boy, it does not make sense. But you make sense by saying there is no boy except John in the classroom. There is no God except Allah, which is the name of that God, of that idol. And as I showed there previously in my video, that La is that name. And Al is coming from another language, because Arabic is not just a language by itself, but it's a combination of other languages. And so even they themselves mention that if we go in the Aramaic, we will see it's the same. We will see that they will say that it's the same, but it is not, and this is a lie that has been spreading. So let's go to the Aramaic. So here we have the Aramaic here. As you can see, L, or as I mentioned, AL or EL, is a word that means God. So we can see clearly here, even in the Hebrew, you would have L as God, and I will get to that in a few. So we go down here and we will see that where the word derived from and how it's been used here. So we see L, as we just saw that L is God, and then you would see that they would come to these words here, saying that is the same as Allah. So you have El, Allah or Allah, because it's either Al or El. So you have Allah or Allah or Elaha or Allaha, but it derived from El. So you would have like plural or singular. If you go into the Hebrew, when we take a look at the Hebrew, you would see that they would say, when Jesus mentioned about Eli, they're saying that it means Allah, but if you go to the origin, it came from El, and El mean it could use for God, false God, or the true God as well. So that's just a word that means God. It's not the name of the God. When the name was asked in the Bible, God has given Moses, I am, as Yahweh. So if you search for God in the very first verse of the Bible, you see that in the beginning, God, which is the Hebrew word, is Elohim. So we see here we have Elohim, which is the plural form of Eloah. Eloah. Or it could have been as the old Hebrew, it would have been Aloha. Or as we have it here, Eloha or Elohim. It's just either the singular or plural. So we have Al or El, which is meaning God, or Allaha or Allaha, as we have it here. Or in the Hebrew, which is Elohim or Eloah. So now let's just take the name Allah, which is Al, mean God, and Allah is that name. So we see where it derived from, which is God, La. And La is just, as I mentioned in part 1, the moon god. And in different culture you have that there's different names. And then again, I'm going to go into the Quran again and show that it's not a word meaning God, but it is the name of the God of the Muslim. So we will go to chapter 53, verse 19. So here we have it. As you can see, we have the name of the daughters of Allah here, which is Al-Lat and Al-Uzza. So again, we see that the word here, the letter al, it came from the Aramaic, and the Aramaic al or el meaning God. So again, it's God or goddess. Oza. So in this case, it's goddess Oza, or you call it a deity, which is God, and God Lat. Now look at this. Al, God, La. It just makes perfect sense. Al means God, and La is the name of that God, as you see in. So as you see here, it is Allah. Alhamdulillah, which is, we have it here, La, To, La, Al. They would say that it means the, but it's coming from the Aramaic. And as you see with Al-Lat and Al-Uzza, it's definitely not the way that they're trying to make it to be. And then they would want to say that why the Christians use the name, the translation as Allah. And I'm going to show you the way the Christians is being treated under the occupation of the Muslims. So we go to chapter 9, verse 29. And we go to the tafsir of Ibn Kathir, and we go down and you will see the Pact of Omar, the way that they treat the Christians. So you can just take a look, we can just see they have to respect whatever the Muslims say, even move from the places that they sit in, and if they choose to sit in them. So they have to obey whatever they say and whatever they do. Even to encrypt stamps in Arabic, they cannot do whatever the Muslim tell them not to do. Even they can't, they have to allow a Muslim to enter their house, and they can eat and live however they feel like. It's always been this way. Even we can see here, they don't salute. They don't salute the Christians and the Jew, and when they reach them on the road, they have to force them in the narrowest spot, and treating them like filth and dirt, and that they're not worth it. So whatever they say, they have to do. So imagine being under the occupation of them, and that's what they have to do. If they say in the Quran is trying to say that they have the same God, but they don't have the same God. But the Christian use the translation because of this. And there are other words that they could use, which is, I'm going to show you here, a word that the Christian could use, and there are many words. As you see that ilaha is a word for God. And here is a word that the Christian could use, which is Arab. They could use Arab, which is a word mean God or Lord or the Almighty, as you can see here. So it's not whether we don't go with what they believe, which is the modern time now. They're trying to change it to make it seem that this is the case, and Allah mean that, when in fact it does not mean that. Even from the Quran you can see that he is not the true God, but a false deity, which is the moon deity. So even again in the Quran you could see that Allah is pointing to the moon god. And if you look here, and when you ask them what this means, they cannot tell. They say only Allah knows. So you see that you have a Yasin. So I reveal something that he alone knows, but as usual, Muhammad copying, and he does not even know what it means. So if you look upon it, you would see that sin is actually God represented the moon, so it's basically linked him back to the moon god, and you can research it for yourself. You just look it up. He was the god of the moon, as you can see, and so swearing by that god, which is Allah speaking about. He alone know the meaning. He know why he know the meaning, because he is that god, the moon god, La. So with all that I've shown here, it just confirms that Allah is the moon god, and the Christians shouldn't use that word as for the word of. They shouldn't use that word for God. As you see, I've shown you a word they could use, which is a Rab, and that could use. So it's never been the same God, and it will never be. Even if they use the same name, even if they use Yahweh, it's not the same God. So no matter the name, no matter what they try, because the God of the Bible teaches way opposite from the God of the Quran. So we can see that either way that they try to twist it, it's not the same God. And the Christian should not use the name Allah as the word for God, because it's the name of that idol. So the teaching is totally opposite. The teaching is totally different. One God saying that in heaven you have so many virgins and it's all about sex and all about these kinds of things. But when you go and listen to Jesus, look what he says. And Jesus replied unto them and saying that, for in the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are as the angels of God in heaven. So it's not about pleasure, it's not about these kinds of lust that is here in this earth, but heaven is totally opposite from the heaven that the Muslim claim they are going to. So I'm going to keep speaking the truth, exposing the lies, and glorify King Jesus, and that the Muslim open their eyes and see the truth, and the truth shall set you free.